We're going to address some of the questions that we didn't have the opportunity to answer live, purely due to the volume of them. So thank you again for your interest and engagement. We have a question from a company that often trains internally, utilizing industry experts to create curricula. The question is, how can they best utilize these guides to ensure they are providing their employees with not only the relevant training, but correct level of training to match New Zealand WorkSafe standards and good practice guidelines? It's important to understand that the WorkSafe standards underpin the content of the skill standards. So the skill standards will always reference the relevant New Zealand WorkSafe standards, so you can be assured that if they are mentioned in the skill standard, that they are accurate and representing the broader standards required. Karen, perhaps for you, we have seen a question regarding the indicative content rather than the range statements, and how we're going to ensure that that gets assessed appropriately.
Yeah, I'm going to just do a bit of bundling here because we've got a few questions that pick on a particular technical aspect of a unit standard versus a technical aspect of a skill standard. And what I'd say is, so these guides, the toolkit of guides, go into the technical, the components of skill standards and pick them apart and say how they relate to the other parts and say what's different about them from unit standards and highlight some of the drawbacks of how it's played out with unit standards. So you can see that in the toolkit. But what I'd also say is, for people who've asked about these components, this would be a great time to go back also and read NZQA's guidelines here, because they are actually also explaining what the components are that you need in your skill standards.
Thank you, Karen. Particularly now that perhaps people have a little bit more content and context, that guide might be read with slightly different eyes. Michelle, could you help us out here? Can both skill standards and unit standards coexist?
In a short answer, while they're both registered on the framework now, yes. So yes, they can, a program that leads to the award of a qualification or a micro-credential can include unit standards and skill standards. However, over time, standard setters need to move to skill standards as part of the Education Act. So it's in the Act. And there will be a transition period. So while they both exist for now, they can be used in programs, and I think it's really important that they inform the assessments that learners receive. So they both have a very similar job as part of their role within the program.
So in the interim is yes, and in future, once all skill standards exist and are listed, it will only be skill standards. Yes. Thank you. We have a very future-focused question here. In Aotearoa, where our skill standards are fully implemented, what does success look like? Selina, could you address what does success look like for learners, please?
Well, skill standards are really less complex. There'll be less in numbers at least.
Yes.
And so for learners and their employers and their workplaces and for the providers, it would hopefully lessen the amount of paperwork required. So that could be a win-win for our learners. The other good thing about skill standards is the ability to recognize excellence. If you go towards a grade-based process, we can actually recognize people who go beyond. And I think that's always a good thing to have, to provide incentives for learners.
Absolutely. Getting that recognition of that higher achievement is right. Crucial. Yeah.
Yes.
Michelle, would you please answer what good could look like for industry in the future?
I think the fact that we have industry in the room telling us what good would look like for them and those skills, and deciding what skills matter, I would hope that industry sees our workforce come through with the skills that they need to thrive in their industries. But really look forward to perhaps Karen picking up a piece of research in a few years to see what success does look like for our industries.
Fantastic suggestion. I second that.
Yes, Definitely.
Thank you very much, everybody, for sending through those questions. We're very grateful that you have afforded us the time to address them separately, and we hope that these answers will resonate with you.